On February 6, 1928, a woman arrived in New York City under the name Anastasia Tchaikovsky and claimed to be the youngest daughter of the assassinated Russian monarch Nicholas II. On the Berengaria, she held a news conference where she said that she was there to get her chin fixed. She said that a Bolshevik soldier had damaged it during her short escape from the Romanovs' execution in July 1918 in Ekaterinburg, Russia. Gleb Botkin, the son of the Romanov family physician who was killed in 1918 along with his patients, welcomed Tchaikovsky to New York. She was addressed as Your Highness by Botkin, who claimed that she was the Grand Duchess Anastasia with whom he had played as a little boy. Some American reporters were pretty wary of Tchaikovsky's claims because between 1918 and 1928, more than a dozen other women had come out with similar claims. However, she was treated like a celebrity in New York, leading to social events and luxury hotels worthy of a Romanov heir. During her stay, she used the name Anna Anderson, which later became her permanent identity. The February Revolution in Russia in 1917 compelled Tsar Nicholas II to resign from his throne. After the Bolsheviks took control in the October Revolution, Nicholas, his wife Alexandra, their 5 daughters, and 1 son were locked at the Tsarskoye Selo Palace before being moved to Ekaterinburg in the Urals. 1918 saw a raging civil war, and in July anti-Bolshevik Russian forces came near Ekaterinburg. The local authorities gave the Romanovs the death sentence out of concern that Nicholas and his family would be rescued. On July 17, 1918, just after midnight, Nicholas and Alexandra were told to get ready fast and head to the basement of the house where they were being kept along with their 5 children, and 4 family servants, including Dr. Botkin. They were told to take a picture there with the family and servants in 2 rows to deny reports that they had escaped. Almost a dozen armed men suddenly rushed into the room and began shooting at the imperial family. When the smoke cleared, those who were still alive had been stabbed to death. The bodies were eventually taken to an abandoned mine tunnel about 14 miles from Ekaterinburg, where they were burned in a bonfire powered by gasoline. The bones were soaked in hydrochloric acid to hide the bodies further. What was eventually left was dumped into the dirt-covered mine hole. The Bolshevik government initially claimed that only Nicholas had been put to death and that his wife and kids had been taken to a safe place. Later, Russian investigators confirmed claims that the entire family had died. However, at the same time, a strong tale about a Romanov child, typically Anastasia, who had escaped the massacre began to circulate throughout Europe. A few pretenders formed in an attempt to benefit from the alleged Romanov money stashed in European banks, but they were quickly exposed as scammers. But Anna Anderson hadn't yet arrived in Europe. A young woman who appeared to be thinking about suicide was rescued from Berlin's Landwehr Canal in 1920. She was committed to the Dahldorf hospital after refusing to reveal her name to the authorities. There, she lived in secret until 1922, when she suddenly revealed that she was none other than the Grand Duchess Anastasia. At the time, several loyal Tsarists came to the rescue of this young woman, who at first impression was intelligent and beautiful enough to be the lost Anastasia. At the time, Europe was crowded with Russian exiles who had escaped the Bolshevik Revolution. She said that the wounds on her body were caused by Bolshevik knives used in her family's death, which left her with horrible scars. She claimed that after one Bolshevik soldier discovered she was still alive, he had helped her in making her escape to the West. After claiming to be Anastasia for a few months, she was allowed to leave the asylum and moved in with the first of many supporters. She became extremely close to Gleb Botkin, who was the son of the murdered Romanov family physician and had spent a lot of time with the imperial family as a young child, as her group of Russian emigrants developed over the following several years. Numerous Romanov family members and friends met her during this time, and many were impressed by both her similarity to Anastasia and her familiarity with the details of the Romanovs' family life. Others, however, were skeptical when she was unable to remember significant occasions in the life of young Anastasia. The young Anastasia was fluent in Russian, but her command of English, French and other languages was poor. Many people attributed these conflicts to her persistent mental condition, which frequently resulted in temporary hospital stays. Her fans started a protracted legal campaign to have her acknowledged as Anastasia during that time. She would get accessibility to whatever Romanov wealth was still available outside of the USSR thanks to such a recognition, and she would also become a powerful political pawn for Tsarist exiles who still wanted to destroy Russia's communist authorities. To find out Anastasia Tchaikovsky's real identity, the Grand Duke of Hesse, Alexandra's brother, and Anastasia's uncle hired a private investigator. She was identified as Franziska Shanskowska, a Polish-German industrial worker from Pomerania who had vanished in 1920, by the investigator. The scars were due to Houska's previous mental instability and injuries caused by a factory explosion in 1916. While these results were reported in the German press, they needed solid proof. The woman who later went by the name Anna Anderson struggled in her search for acknowledgement, losing several legal battles over the years. In 1954, a French play based on her life, Anastasia, made its debut. In 1956, an American film adaptation starring Ingrid Bergman in the lead role premiered. Anne Anderson moved to the United States in 1968 after getting married to J.E. Manahan, a professor of American history, and spent her final years in Charlottesville, Virginia. She lost her final serious lawsuit in 1970, and the Duchess of Mecklenburg was given the remaining Romanov riches. In 1984, Anna Anderson Manahan passed away. Using a freshly made public government report on the Romanov execution, conspiracy theorists in Russia discovered what they believed to be the Romanov burial site in 1991. After taking control, Russian authorities gathered up human remains. Anastasia was reportedly among the skulls that scientists examined, but their results were unclear. The Russians wanted the help of British DNA specialists to prove definitely that the remains were those of the Romanovs. First, the researchers conducted a sex test on the remains and discovered 5 females and 4 men. They next conducted tests to determine if these individuals were linked at all. 3 girls, a mother, and a father were all named. The remaining 4 remains most likely belonged to servants. 1 daughter and the son Alexei were absent. The scientists took blood samples from Prince Philip, Queen Elizabeth II's spouse, and Alexandra's grandnephew, to establish the identities of Alexandra and her children. They would all share DNA samples, which are carried nearly unaffected from mother to child because they all have a common maternal origin. The mtDNA in Philip's blood and the remains were compared, and the results showed that they were the Romanovs. Grand Duke George, Nicholas's brother, was pulled up from the ground and his remains were used to identify the Tsar, who would not give this mtDNA. Their relationship was discovered through an mtDNA match. The cemetery was missing 1 Romanov daughter. Was it possible for Anastasia to escape and reappear as Anna Anderson? American and English experts set out to resolve this mystery in 1994. The English scientists compared Anderson's mtDNA with that of the Romanovs using DNA that was obtained from a Virginia hospital. A team from America compared the mtDNA detected in a hair strand of hers at the same time. The conclusion reached by both groups was universal. Anna Anderson was not a Romanov. Later, the researchers compared Karl Maucher, Franziska Houska's great-nephew, and Anna Anderson's mtDNA. The DNA match gave solid proof for the notion advanced by a German researcher in the 1920s. A significant mystery from the 20th century has been mostly resolved. In 2007, a Russian builder discovered burned remains in a forest near the Romanovs family's terrible accident that matched the 2 missing Romanovs that were identified that year later belonged to Anastasia and Alexei. I hope you enjoyed this dramatic story. When I was little I was fascinated with the missing princess. I watched the cartoon movie It Was Nice. Do you believe that she was alive? Was she rescued? Tell us in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe.